I'm speaking with Fiona Maazel, author of Woke Up Lonely, and who also was a 5Under35 author. And I'm sure you've been asked this before because Woke Up Lonely is so inventive and smart and exciting and surprising, but how did you come up with the premise for that book? What was the first spark of inspiration?
Well, thank you, first of all. It's nice of you to say. I think I knew I wanted to write a book about loneliness. Loneliness has always struck me as pandemic and one of these conditions that no one was really talking about. And I've always been obsessed with loneliness, obsessed to the point where it seems like everything I write is about loneliness in one way or another. And of course the problem with writing a book about loneliness is that when you go on book tour, people in the audience ask you questions like, are you lonely? Which is kind of horrifying. So I knew that I wanted to write a book that was going to examine people on various paths towards and away from estrangement, and think about how to frame a story around that as a preoccupation. I also knew I wanted to write about a cult leader because it seemed like a figure that not many people had written about. He wasn't going to be a fanatic, he wasn't going to be a religious nut or anything like that. And I kind of went from there. I had a cult leader, I had loneliness, and in the way that like dentists all really have ugly teeth, I thought what better way to have, what better thing than to have a cult leader who wants to eradicate loneliness who is himself extremely lonely. So I went from there.
Well, you did it. And I only want to read really about lonely people,
See?
so
there
it's
we go.
perfect
Because the
for
happy
me.
people are so boring.
They really are. Sorry, happy people. And what I would like to know is at the Slice conference this fall, I heard you speak at a panel, and I was really inspired by something you said, which was it was a panel I think about success, and
It's a panel about rejection.
I think that's really what it was. Yes, and you said something about how success in publishing is being able to publish another book, and that's. Can you talk a little bit more about that? It's been really grounding for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is what I tell all my students, what I tell all my friends when they are despairing about their careers, and it's something that we all know but sort of forget. Process is its own reward. Writing the book is the real joy. I mean, it's also extremely difficult and enervating and dismantling and torturous and all of those things, but it's also joyous in a way that really nothing else is. The moment you finish it and turn it into your agent, everything kind of goes downhill in terms of the real joy, like the inner pleasure. Even if you are massively successful, none of that success can match that wonderful experience of just sort of sitting in your chair, especially when it's going well. So, success for me is getting the chance to keep doing that. I mean, if you're a real writer, that's what you love to do. That's what you want to do. This is why so many writers have 9,000 other jobs. It's not because they like their other jobs, it's because they will do anything to support themselves so that they continue to do this thing they love. So, the accolades are immaterial. They're nice, don't get me wrong. The awards are wonderful, but, the beautiful thing about an award is that it too will give you the chance to write, another book. But mercifully, you don't actually need to have lots of awards in order to keep publishing.
So it's almost like that loneliness of the writing process is what we miss after we send it out into the world.
Yeah, I mean a
The
little
good
bit.
parts.
A little bit. I wouldn't call it so much lonely though. It's gratifying and it is a time to be with yourself, but perhaps not in a pejorative way.
Yes, it's the best. And then one other question is, and this is a question that I'm asking everyone because I'm really interested in it personally, because I do find it sometimes hard to take myself seriously. When were you first able to think of yourself as a writer with a capital W?
I love your premise that I've ever been able to think of myself as a writer with a capital W. But late, very late in the game. I always tell people that you are a writer if you write, but nobody actually believes that. What they think is that you are a writer if you publish. But then once you've published your first book, then maybe you're not a writer if you can't publish a second one. You were just, a one-hit wonder or a one-trick pony. So I don't know. I mean, the pressure that we put on ourselves as writers is so intense. We always feel like you're only as good as what you do tomorrow, and I won't be a writer until I have 5 books or 10 books. But it really is true that you are a writer if you have the passion and the discipline to sit down and do this work. me personally, I really didn't. I didn't think it was going to happen until I didn't feel like I was kind of going to be able to have this life until I got agented for my first novel, which turned into a mini disaster. That novel never got published. That agent is no longer my agent, and yet, just to give you an idea of how the things that we use to shore ourselves up are often themselves so fragile, and fleeting. That the only way to really get that sense is somewhere in here.
That's good. I'm gonna write that down too.
All right.
Good.
Motivation.
You are really good at this
Yeah.
inspiration. It's
Like
like
a life
real
coach.
life inspiration for writers. One more question. What makes you laugh?
Oh man, I can tell you what doesn't make me laugh.
Okay, that's good.
Slapstick, fart and shit jokes, Billy Madison, all of those like really stupid boy movies. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
All of the farty movies. But I'm not a snob. I mean, The Big Lebowski, for instance, really made me laugh. I thought it was completely hilarious in pretty much every way. It's hard to, it's a little bit like that joke about pornography. You don't know what it is until you see it. Is that how that joke goes?
I don't know.
I don't even know if it's a joke.
I like that.
I feel the same way about humor. When it's funny, I'll know it's funny, but most things just aren't funny, and that's the hard thing about comedy, is that people think they're funny, and then they're not.
Well, your book is full of dark humor, my favorite flavor of humor. And will you sign my book?
Oh yeah. You gonna get that on camera too?
Wait, I have to get. I don't know. Do we have enough room for the signing?